you sit down to work and nothing feels wrong. You're fresh, caffeinated, and ready to crush it. But then, whatever crosses your mind doesn't feel worth keeping. Nothing feels bad enough to kill outright, though nothing's good enough to trust either. So you let the idea go, and then another one, and another. And at some point, you lean back in your chair, stare at the ceiling, and that's when it hits you. Fuck, I'm blocked. Welcome to the Unspoken Yes, the podcast where we get out of a creative block the same way we get out of bed on a Monday, without any grace and sweating at anything that moves. Today's episode, why creativity freezes and how to get your ideas flowing again. Let's talk about that moment, the fuck, I'm blocked moment, because it feels pretty definitive when it lands, doesn't it? I mean, it sounds like something inside you just stopped working. And it's very easy to believe. The problem is that nothing's coming. That today is just not your day, or maybe you should have stayed in bed. But here's the thing. Most of the time, that's bullshit. You just have to rewind a little bit to see that ideas were there. Yeah, maybe they were not great ones, sure. But something was moving, right? Things were working. And somehow, between that moment and the one where you are death staring at your laptop, everything froze. So this episode is about that gap. About what we usually miss when we talk about creative block. And about why this shows up even when you're experienced, motivated, or genuinely trying to do good work. And more importantly, about how to get yourself out of that place without having to wait around for inspiration to magically show up and save your ass. Because here's what I need you to understand. Feeling blocked doesn't mean you've lost it. It usually just means your ideas need more time, more space, and a different kind of attention than you're giving them right now. Here's the part that usually catches people off guard. This doesn't happen because you're inexperienced. Actually, it happens because you're not. The more years you put into this job, the faster your brain gets at pattern recognition. Why? Because you've already seen what works, what doesn't, and listen, this is key. You've also seen ideas that look promising and went absolutely nowhere. And all that experience, yes, it sharpens your taste and it's great until it's not. Because that same taste is now in the room way earlier than it used to be before, right? It's there in the room even before the idea takes shape, even before it has time to surprise you, or even before it's clear what it could become. So when something shows up that feels familiar or rough or slightly off, what happens is that your instinct isn't curiosity anymore. Your instinct is evaluation. And evaluation is dangerous because it feels like competence. It makes you feel good, like you're doing your job well, like you're smart and efficient. But the problem is that when it shows up too early, it quietly starts shutting things down before they've had a chance to breathe. That's why this moment feels so fucking frustrating. Oh, sorry, I mean low-key frustrating. Wait, can I still say low-key or is that over? And also, am I doing generational appropriation right now? Is that even a thing? Whatever, I'm keeping it. What I was saying, you're not stuck because you don't know what good looks like. You already know that. You're stuck because you know it too well, too soon. The tricky thing is that this moment, when you hesitate or think like, shit, this isn't it, feels exactly the same no matter where you are in your career. It feels the same if you're a junior, a senior, or if you're the one running the team. However, what happens next isn't the same at all. When a junior gets stuck, let's be honest, it's not the end of the world. Why? Because usually someone more senior is going to jump in, help reframe the challenge, find a direction, and the work moves on. Now, when a senior gets stuck, hey, things start getting tricky. Fewer ideas are going to be explored, safer options start to feel more comfortable, and eventually the team picks up on that hesitation. That's the real danger there. However, the big challenge here is when the person leading the team gets stuck. At that point, when good ideas from the team arrive, like half formed, a bit fragile, basically looking for help, instead of being protected, they get judged too early. Sometimes even killed without anyone really meaning to. And look, if you're a Gen Z creative reading the room right now, thinking, oh yeah, shit, my boss does that all the time. Well, you're probably right. Why? Because we millennials invented overthinking and made it a leadership style. You're welcome for that legacy, my friend.
Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party.
Anyway, the danger here is that your blog isn't yours anymore. It's that it sets the tone for everyone else in the room. And that's when things start dying quietly. Okay, Roberto, okay. So if the problem isn't a lack of ideas, and it isn't experience, and it isn't even confidence, what the heck it is? Okay? The problem is timing. Oh, timing. Yeah, timing. More specifically, is judgment showing up too fucking early. And at some point in our careers, we confuse two very different things. Thinking and deciding. Hey, even if they're two worlds apart. Why? Because thinking is messy, slow, uncomfortable. Hey, but deciding is clean. It feels sharp, efficient. And obviously, we prefer deciding, right? Who wouldn't? Everyone wants to be a boss.
Finally!
And the more experienced you are, the easier it is to jump from one to the other without even noticing. How? Just not giving ideas time to be bad in interesting ways. Or not letting them stretch. I mean, you don't let them surprise you. You just kill them. And that's the problem. Because ideas usually don't arrive as ideas. They arrive as hints, as shapes, as directions that only make sense after you've sat with them for a while. So judging them too early doesn't mean you're being demanding. It means you might be closing the door before anything's had the chance to walk in. That's why creative block feels so frustrating. Because you're not doing nothing. What you're doing is too much of the wrong thing and too soon. And until that timing changes, no amount of inspiration is going to help you. Let's talk about the different ways we creatives block ourselves and how to get out of each one. Because when we say I'm blocked, we usually mean very different things. And that's part of the problem also. So let's slow it down and separate what's actually happening because each type of block needs a different response. The first kind of block is what I call the illusion of emptiness. This is when it feels like nothing is coming, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like your brain is not cooperating. But the real issue here isn't that there are no ideas. It's that there are too many things happening at once inside your head. You know, pressure, expectations, preferences, deadlines. At the end, all that piles up, and instead of helping, it narrows your thinking. Basically, your brain switches from exploring and having fun to just managing stress. And what actually happens here is that your inner critic jumps in immediately. It's not going to scream, that's why you never see it coming. It's just going to whisper, and that whisper is enough to kill the spark before it even lights up. So what do? you reduce the load on purpose. You have to stop asking for good ideas and start asking for any ideas. Write badly, sketch fast, give yourself a stupidly low bar just to get movement back. And this is important. The goal here is not quality, it's access. Trust me, something will eventually show up and you'll realize you weren't empty, you were just overloaded. The second type of block is overthinking dressed up as standards. This is the type of block that makes you feel professional, important. You tell yourself that you're being demanding and that you don't want to waste time. But what you are really doing is chasing an ideal that, hey, doesn't exist yet. So instead of focusing on making anything, you spend your time like preparing, researching, collecting references, and looking at what others have done before. And yeah, that makes you feel productive, right? But the thing is that nothing actually moves. And here's the tell. You've been working for a while, but you have nothing rough to show for it. So how do you get out? Forcing iteration instead of improvement. Simple. Don't try to make the idea better, just try to make it different. Push out 10 versions instead of one. Change the angle, change the format, the audience, the channel. Just focus on generating quantity to escape the trap of quality. The third block I want to talk about is comparison poisoning your flow. This is a sneaky one, because it often doesn't feel like comparison. It feels like staying inspired, like keeping up. But if you notice that your ideas start sounding like things you've already seen, or worse, that they feel smaller the more you look around, that's what's happening. Here, social media is especially brutal, because you're constantly exposed to finished work, to polished thinking, to award cases. But you don't get to see the mess, the traps, or even the doubt behind any of it. And if you're under 30, you grew up with this. The algorithm's been training you since middle school to measure yourself against everyone else's highlighted reel. So yeah, no shit, your ideas feel small before they've had a chance to grow. The move here is simple, but notice it. You have to stop looking sideways for a while. Limit this crazy reference input. Go back to the brief. Recheck the problem, the context you already know. And remind yourself that your job isn't to match what's out there. It's to respond to this particular situation, this brand, and this moment. Your voice will come back once the noise goes down. Once you recognize which of these you're in, there are a few things that help no matter what. Let's talk solutions. First, the pre-modern. And if you just thought, the what now? Let me explain. This is one of those corporate strategy things that actually works. Basically, you imagine your project already failed spectacularly. Then you work backward to figure out why. It's like murder mystery, except you're both the detective and the killer. Okay, so with that in mind, before you try to unlock the idea, stop for a second and ask yourself a very annoying question. What's going to make me kill this idea later? Is it going to feel too obvious? Maybe too risky? Will it be hard to sell? Is legal going to hate it? Or is it going to look cringe on TikTok? Instead of pretending those thoughts aren't there, write them down on purpose. And the sooner, the better. Because when those objections stay in your head, they paralyze you. But on paper, they become constraints you can work around. Second solution, give your ideas a structure to push against. Look, a lot of creatives freeze because they're waiting for the idea to appear fully formed. Raise your hand if that's not you. Yeah, thought so. The thing is, that almost never happens because ideas need friction. So create it. Would this idea work in a completely different category? Seriously, how? What if it had to live on a channel you really hate? I'm talking about you, LinkedIn. But what if you had to explain it to your dad? Or to anyone else who looks interested but has no idea what you're doing for a living? And pay attention, we're not looking for brilliance here. We're forcing connections. Because when you change one variable at a time, you push the idea to react. And once that happens, you're no longer stuck. Let's go with the third solution now. How you step away matters. Look, long breaks, as tempting as they might be, don't usually help when you are blocked. They just make it harder to come back. What works better? Short, intentional pauses, like stop writing in the middle of a thought, or don't close the notebook or the Word doc or whatever you use to write things down. And don't wrap things up neatly. Instead, just go for a short walk, get a glass of water, or look out the window for 2 minutes. That kind of break is not long enough to reset the work, but surely it will reset you. And very often, the next step will show up right after, not during. Then there's the long game. Because now that you're out of the rut, you don't want to go back in. I mean, getting unstuck once is useful, but you should aim to stay fluid over time. One thing that helps here is deliberately keeping a beginner's attitude, even when you're anything bad. That doesn't mean pretending you don't know what you know. It means starting from curiosity instead of judgment. Simply ask yourself, what could this be? Before asking, is this good? Keep this in mind. The moment you suddenly breathe by measuring it against past wins, you're narrowing the field even before you explore it. Another underrated tool is building rituals. I didn't say habits, I said rituals. Repeatable signals that tell your brain, now we are working. Same place, same time, same notebook, same silly creative word map you've done 1,000 times before. And before anyone under 25 rolls their eyes, yes, I know this sounds like hustle culture bullshit straight from LinkedIn, but hear me out. This isn't about optimizing your morning or crashing your goals or whatever. It's about making it easier to start when you don't feel like it. You're not trying to get inspired here. You're just telling your brain, it's time to play now, at this time, in this place. A ritual removes the negotiation part. You're not asking yourself if you're in the mood or ready or if today is a good day. You just sit down and start because that's what you do. And that's crucial when you're blocked. Because creative block often isn't about ideas. It's about resistance. And rituals don't fight resistance. They walk around it. You're just showing up and letting the work catch up with you. And the third thing we should work on is to change what you reward yourself for. If the only thing that counts is the final idea, every early stage will feel like failure. Every rough thought feels like proof that you're not there yet. And that makes starting heavier every single time, to be honest. That means you end up judging yourself on outcomes you don't fully control. What works better is shifting the reward to the process. Did you sit down and engage with the problem today? Did you generate options instead of waiting for the right one? Did you stay with the discomfort instead of running away from it? That's the real work. And when you start valuing that, you stop needing every session to end with a breakthrough. You stop seeing early mess as wasted time. And you stop interpreting friction as failure. What you need is embedded ideas. You need more tolerance for the first bad versions. Well, if you made it this far, chances are this is just another topic for you. Probably it's a situation you've been in. Maybe recently, maybe more often than you'd like. Today we've talked about that familiar moment when ideas stall, about why it shows up more as you gain experience, about how judgment sneaks in early, and what you can do to stop killing ideas before they've had a chance. And if there's one thing I'd like you to take from this episode, is this. Feeling blocked doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you've lost your edge either. And it definitely doesn't mean you're not good at what you're doing anymore. In fact, the more experience you have, the harder that early stage can feel. Because you know where things should end up. You know what good looks like. And that makes it tempting to skip the part where ideas are still clumsy and unclear. But even that part isn't the problem, eh? It's just the work you have to put in. So next time you catch yourself leaning back in your chair, about to say, fuck, I'm blocked, maybe pause for a second. Not to force or fix anything. Just to ask yourself whether what you are feeling is really emptiness or just the discomfort of starting from something imperfect. Because if you can stay there a little bit longer without judging it too soon, most of the time the work starts moving again. And before we end, let me say this. I didn't start this podcast because I had answers. I started it because I kept running into the same moments, doubts, and frictions over and over. And I realized I wasn't the only one. We just weren't talking about them publicly. So if you are still listening, thanks, really. It means you're probably someone who cares about the work, even when it gets uncomfortable. And in case you want to keep having these conversations, you know where to find the Unspoken Yes. It's here every couple of weeks whenever you feel like coming back. You can also follow it, subscribe, pass it on, or whatever makes sense. And if at some point you feel like sharing how this shows up in your own work, or you simply have questions about what we talk about today, send me an email to theunspokenyes@gmail.com and we'll see where the conversation wants to go. That's it for today. Take care of the work and take care of yourself too.
In my lane, and I don't stay in my